everyone for joining us today in our brand new episode. We have with us Mr. Shashwat Srivastava today. Shashwat is a musician and a theatre artist. And as always, we'll let Shashwat introduce himself and then we'll jump on to the two questions that we have for him today. So over to you, Shashwat.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I'm really glad that we're having this conversation because I'm a little shy when it comes to talking on platforms like these and sharing my experience and whatever little I do. So thanks so much for giving me the courage and opportunity to come here today. So I've been doing many things, and so like for example, today for some time I was a video editor. For some time I was an advertising copywriter. For some time I was a musician, and for some time I was trying to be a chef. So it changes from day to day. So one morning I get up and I decide to be a musician, and one morning I get up and I decide to be a cook. So but if you want to define who I am by the way of how do I make money, then yes, you can say I am a music composer by profession as of now. So yeah, so we'll keep the conversation within that for the sake of simplicity.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Shashwat, for that introduction. I know it's very, so it's very difficult for a lot of artists to, sort of define in a very narrow way in terms of what we do. And therefore, I like it the way you just put a little context in the sense of how you make money, you're a musician, but in otherwise, you're so many other things. Great, Shashwat. So we have two very specific questions for you tonight. One of them is related to the process, the creative process. So whenever you're working on independent projects, when you're making music for yourself, um, do you have a process behind it? Do you follow? Are there any certain steps in terms of how you proceed, or how you start, or is it more chaotic or random and keeps changing with every work?
All right. So this question has two parts in terms of answering it. One can be purely technical, as a musician, as a composer, as a singer performer. What are the technical steps that I use? And the other would be that what's your thought process and how do you research and this and that. So I'll quickly try and answer and answer both the parts. So the first part is, where do I start? How do I think? It depends on what I am doing. So there are various kinds of projects that you can undertake as a music composer. One of course is the commissioned work that you may get, which means that somebody asks you to compose music on his or her behalf, like for a film or an art film or a theater production. So when you're composing on somebody else's behalf, then you have to do a different kind of research. You have to understand. It becomes a classical, marketing advertising kind of work, where, like an outsourced job, where you have to understand the client's need and you have to address it to best of your ability and within the budget allowed to you. So it's a pretty typical, pretty tried and tested classical way of approaching that kind of work. So of course, I mean, if it's a film, then I have to see what's the story. I'll have to read the script. I have to sit with the director. I have to take a narration if possible, or at least have a detailed discussion about the project with the director or whosoever is in the creative authority. So, and then your work starts from there. Then you start your own research, you get references, read, you watch, you listen, you come up with samples, examples, start sharing your stuff with the person you're making it for, and have a constant dialogue, whether you're on the right path or not, till the time you arrive at your workstation that, okay, finally, I am now going to place the tracks or start recording, or then the technical execution starts. So the first part is pretty simple as far as the commissioned work is concerned. It's more difficult to do your own independent work. So for example, if I have to if and it's not like I want to do my independent work. It just happens that I find something that stimulates me. So if that happens, then it's a different kind of a process, uh, a different kind of a journey. So whatever stimulates you, then you try and explore more of that and see and go into detail, collect as much information as possible, get as much experience around that as possible, whether it's a place, or it's a sound, or it's an instrument, or it's an incident, or it's a monument, or it's a book. It can be anything, or it's a person. It can be anything, or an animal, river, mountain, anything. It can be anything. So, but it's a very long process, and most of the journey you are doing alone, because to have people on your side and start working with you, you need to have some kind of an idea about what you're trying to do. So to arrive at that point, it's a pretty long journey, and which you're doing alone. So it's a very lonely, sometimes painful process, and very long. So it may take a couple of years, maybe 4, 5, 7 years, 10 years, maybe, before you arrive at a point that you can actually start work. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, which is the technical part of it, which I don't know if the scope of this program allows that, but very briefly, I'll try and tell that. So every time I sit in front of my workstation, I feel that I'm going to fail terribly, and this is not going to happen. And it used to happen 15 years ago. It happens even now, and I think it's going to happen again. Every time I will start something new. So every time I start with this feeling that this is not going to happen, and I don't know where to start. So that's the first step, and then you start, slowly start tinkering around, basically, just like a novice, if I can say that. You start tinkering around, and you start, plucking some notes here and there, and you build it brick by brick, literally. Musicians have this advantage now because of technology, that a lot of content library is now available. A lot of samples are floating around, and it's really cheap. Most of the softwares are available as a subscription now, you know. So it's really accessible, and a lot of these libraries and virtual instruments. I mean, you can, without knowing how to play a single note on any instrument, you can actually create a song today. So it's all available to you. But the problem is that if you do that, you sound just like anybody else. So, and that's the reason why all the songs these days sound the same. Very rarely you find something which sounds very different, and that happens only because those that song or that piece of music has been built brick by brick. So if you're using, so yeah, so but again, I'm not against using samples, or I'm not against using libraries and virtual instruments. Uh, Only if you know how to use them well, and only if you use them as building blocks, as bricks, and not use them as you know quick fix, or fly by night solution. Right. So yeah, so that's the technical process. I mean, you start. I am, and let me tell everybody, I don't start with which key I am, or which chord is this, or what is this, or what is that. I just start tinkering with my keyboard or with my guitar, and some sounds happen, and they just build. So note by note, brick by brick, I build my music and build my song. So for me, it's a very organic process.
Mhm.
Sometimes it takes a hell lot of time.
Mhm. So it's something very interesting that you said right at the beginning, that you a stimulus hits you and that really sort of starts the entire process off. Do you think it makes sense to actively look for that kind of a stimulus, or does it you just have to end up waiting for it to happen on its own? For example, if I experience, I guess all creatives experience the same thing, that we are all waiting for that jolt, that, and that really is the starting step. But then, can someone maybe perhaps travel and look for stories? Can perhaps talking to people, can that trigger a story? So an active process of looking for a stimulus, does that ever work, or the stories just find you first?
No, I don't usually look for material or look for inspiration, usually, unless I'm doing a commissioned work.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing commissioned work, then you have to look for it, and you better find it if you want to make some money. But uh, you have to keep yourself, you have to give yourself that space. You have to put yourself in different kind of experiences all the time, and then things will find you. Inspiration will find you. So it's just about, if you're sitting in your room all day, it's not going to find you. You have to make yourself available. Then only, you have to keep your antenna open, and you have to go out in the field to receive the signals. Signals are everywhere. It's just that if you shut down yourself in a room, even the mobile network doesn't reach my studio. So if I sit the entire day in my studio, it's not going to reach me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A little follow-up question to the first question again is that, so you do commissioning projects as well as independent projects. Do you ever sort of feel that commissioning projects are somewhat stifling in nature, that a lot of your clients might not give you that complete autonomy to create something that you think is good for the brand or maybe the project itself? And hence, in that sense, do you ever sort of feel the need of going away from commissioning projects?
No, it's not like that actually. When you're, so okay, before I became a musician, I was for a very long time in advertising. And thanks to that I have gotten used to this whole culture of clients and briefs and changes and iterations and whatnot. So I've been through this so many times that now this seems quite normal to me. I don't take it to my heart that how can somebody turn down my work or say, you don't even know how to sing and you're telling me this is wrong or this is not sounding good. So I don't, and I also understand that if somebody is putting um, their money, if somebody is making a film or somebody is making some different, maybe a production, that person has done enough research and that person is far more involved than me in that project, because my stake is very little in. So let's talk about a film, for example. If somebody's making a film, a feature film, and I'm just giving music in it, I'm playing a part in the film. It's all right, but the director of the film and the producer of the film are far more involved in the project than me. So I would like to assume that they know better than me about that project, about that story. So if they have taken a creative decision, I should respect that, and I should try and work with whatever best I can to support their decision, to make their vision come true. Ultimately, film is not my vision. The film is the director's vision. So I have to be, I have to put my complete uh, faith in the director's vision and work towards it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Otherwise, I mean, I can have suggestions, I can have ideas, I can share with the director, but ultimately it's the director's vision. So I don't if I get a feedback and I have to rework and I have to, and believe me, in a film, at least my experience is that you have to do at least 2 to 3 reworks, and it takes a lot of time. A rework means a month's work. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of your effort, but then it's worth it. It's worth it, you know. So I don't take it to my heart. and I never feel stifled. And even while in advertising, I figured out that when you are working within restrictions, you become even more creative. Your work becomes, because you're looking for solutions, you're looking for smarter, more efficient solutions, because somebody has put you in a situation. If you're floating around, you just killing time, a lot of time, uh, and reach nowhere. At least you're reaching somewhere. At least some kind of work is getting churned out. So I
Mm,
never feel stifled. Or yeah, and and I'm not 21 anymore. So I've been through all this so many times that I've understood, kind of understood that how this thing works.
mm. But I guess I think what you mentioned is a very important realization that all creatives will probably end up going through at some point of their career. That what you said, that you realizing the fact that you are only a part of the entire project, and that having that humility to have that trust on the owner of that project in its true sense, to sort of give him or her the the final say. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult for an artist to sort of adjust to this entire client scenario. So yeah, I think that's one big takeaway for all the young artists out there who's watching this. Um,
No, so
Great, thank you.
so okay, talking in the management lingo, so I had this policy, which was this, that okay, the first option that I create is my option, I think is the best. Second is collaborative, and the third is, what the heck, it's your money.
Mm,
So that made my life simple back
mm,
in the advertising days. And even now, I mean, especially when I'm doing ad films, I do very little, very small number of ad films in a year. But sometimes you're in a situation where it's like, okay, it's your money. I'll give that to you. Don't worry about it. So ultimately, if I'm a professional music composer, I'm working on somebody's behalf. You have to always remember that.
great. Thank you, Shashwat, for answering that first question. I'll quickly move on to the second one, and this is in sort of relevance to the current times that we're living in, and I'm referring to the post-pandemic times. Things are slowly sort of opening up. People are going out of their homes again and coming back to the sense of normalcy or whatever. In this situation, do you have any kind of advice that young musicians can sort of do to get commissioning projects? Are there any sort of portals, or what kind of networking? What would you advise the young artists out there?
Honestly speaking, I am not a big believer in the listing your work on a website thing. Although some of my friends actually run this kind of a business, and it looks like they're going quite well. There are people. One of my friends is an aggregator. I know friends who have posted their portfolios and their works online. Um, I never got work like that, and I don't really know of people who get substantial work from such things. You may get featured on some random place. You may get one odd show. Two people might call you, but it's all right. I mean, when you're young and when you're starting out, whatever you get is okay. But uh, I don't know of people who it's my own experience, and I don't know of other people also who got anywhere doing all this. Um, I think it's really important to, if you're a musician, and I'm talking only from that point of view. If you are a musician, if you are a singer, or if you are a music composer, or if you play an instrument, You have to, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is train every day. And so that when the opportunity comes your way, even after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, pandemic or no pandemic, I think pandemic, coming back to the pandemic thing, it has not made things difficult for for artists, I would say. No, I'm saying purely from the point of view that the acceptance of the online system of the whole digital communication system is has become so much that you are reaching more drawing rooms than ever before. You can possibly, you can reach far more people in India than you could ever have ever imagined even last year. So from purely that point of view, you have a much larger audience to reach out to, which is a good thing. Now the challenge here is nothing new, and it's not because of the pandemic. The challenge here is that a lot of people wait for the opportunity and then they start preparing for it. The whole idea is that I might sound a little old school over here, but I've realized that this is how actually it happens. So when you are about when you in your early 20s, you think that whether you're a singer, musician, or actor, or any other kind of creative artist, you think that some magic will happen someday. Miracles do happen. So one day I'll become Shah Rukh Khan, or one day I'll become A.R. Rahman at the age of 18. Some miracle will happen. By the time you hit 30, you think that miracles don't happen. It happens with hard work. So you start working hard. When you hit 40, you think even hard work doesn't work, right? So, and then you think that, okay, perhaps it's never going to happen. You have to now adjust to the reality. And what takes you further is discipline. So, you start with copying people, you start with getting influenced by people, and you start mimicking them, or you start doing things like start playing guitar like Eric Clapton, or you start singing like Nora Jones, or somebody that you really somebody really inspires you, and other people around you also in your school, in your college, are doing that. You start copying them and you start mimicking them, and then the next level is that it becomes your passion, that okay, I can't live without playing music, can't live without singing, I can't live without painting. um, that becomes your passion. It wears down very, very quickly. Then the third stage is that it becomes your ego. I am a musician. Whether or not you're earning money out of it or you're doing any substantial work, it doesn't matter. I'm a musician. I'm an artist. I'm a painter. I'm a sculptor. I'm an actor. I'm whatever. It you're running on your ego. Nothing is really happening. And the ego also fizzles out very, very quickly. So a lot of people drop out on all these stages. So either you drop out at the copying level, or at the being in the gang level, peer pressure level. Then you drop out at the passion level, or you drop out at the ego level. What really takes you further is your discipline, because once you cross all these three stages, and if you're still continuing, it's perhaps because you don't know anything else. It becomes like brushing your teeth or taking a bath. You don't think and you don't plan that, oh, I have to brush my teeth. You don't have to plan. It just happens. And you don't think that somebody will give me money for it, or somebody will give me an award for brushing my teeth one day. So you run on discipline. So coming back to the question, what one can do. See, for if you ask me, it's a long process. It's not because of the pandemic or of the war or this or that. There were people making great music, great films during the World War. There were people making great music, great films during whatever time, right? So it didn't stop. In fact, you'll find more people who are doing good work then. I believe it's a very long process, and maybe in the process you might find some miracle, if you're really lucky, but it's more likely that you will not. So it is a long process, and you have to keep preparing yourself, keep training yourself, so that when that opportunity of some miracle happening arrives, you are ready for it. One person used to come or two people used to come in the village, but we still used to do it every day. So one became two, two became three, four, five. After 40 years, 400 come, right? So at that time, it didn't mean much to me. I could not understand what that means. I just took it, okay, some great person saying some great thing. But today I realize little bit what it means. So I believe that you have to, and especially in my business, where you are sitting in your studio and waiting for some person to give you some work, you really have to do what I called as friend raising. So what is friend raising? Friend raising is that, when you are young, when you are, starting out, you're starting with your friends, which are, or people. Maybe you are passing out from film school or from music school, or you're in a college, you have a band, or you have people, like-minded people around you in a theater group. You have like-minded people around you, and you're friends with them. You're working with them every day. Start investing in those people, because one of them will grow up to become a music director, a film director, an actor, or a producer, or an editor, or a financier, or somebody. These are the people. If you are a 25-year-old artist, your friends are perhaps 25, 30, 20, 21-year old. After 20 years, 15 years, they will become an Anurag Kashyap, or somebody will become a Vidhu Vinod Chopra, or somebody will become, Nayyar Rahman, or somebody will become a Chitra, things like people like those. So, and if you happen to be in that company, you will grow along with them. And that's the only way. Look around yourself. So it's, and again, I mean, there can be an argument that no, there are people for them who become stars overnight, or who become great. It's more likely that it will not happen to you than it would. So I believe in that. That it's not likely that tomorrow morning some miracle is going to happen. If it happens, great. But then you have to work for a scenario that it's not going to happen. So which is far more likely. So you have to really invest in your friends. You have to really keep working hard, keep training yourself, keep preparing for the time when one of your friends will give you a call and say, "Hey, I have some work for you." Right? And it will happen. And it happens just like that, because I see people around me. I've who have who started around the same time that I started, and they are beginning to do good things in whatever field they are. And maybe in another 5, 7, 10 years, somebody will become, and I'm also a part of their journey. So I'm also growing with them. I'm also learning with their experiences. And they will trust me more than anybody else that they're going to meet. Because, and you see in the artist fraternity, you have these very closed groups of people who have grown up together. Not in the, in the literal sense of it, growing up together. It's just that they have grown up together in the same circle, watching each other's work, critiquing each other's work, participating and investing in each other's work, whether financially, emotionally, uh, physically, in whichever way. So you need to get a lot of emotional investment. You need to invest in your friends a lot, not in terms of money, but in terms of emotion, in terms of effort, and literally help each other to grow. And that's how you're going to uh, grow and get more work, whether pandemic or no pandemic. And then it comes down to whether you are comfortable with the with technology or not. That's another thing. So I mean that's a given. That's a given. Otherwise, you'll end up like a floppy disk.
Mm.
So if you do not if you do not uh, understand technology, if you are afraid of technology, or if you do not upgrade yourself technologically every 2 3 years, you're going to get left behind and you'll end up like a cassette or a floppy disk. So if you can afford a museum for yourself, it's all right. Otherwise, you will be in a recycle packaging.
Irrelevant. Mhm. All right. Thank you, Shashwat, for answering both of those questions. They were very insightful, and I'm sure a lot of our young audiences would find a lot of meat in that. Um, as always, we would leave the links to your work and your website, and also the theater part of it. We'll leave the links to all of that in the description, so be sure to go and check them out. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Shashwat, for being with us tonight.